according to Mark Stein, is one of the names out there. You know, Doc, I know Doc pretty well, and I like Doc a lot. Doc has been so public for so long, it's easy to take shots at him. And I've always kind of laughed and rolled my eyes at the Doc narrative. Doc has a 59% career winning percentage. That's the same as Eric Spoelstra. And Quinn Snyder, who everybody wanted to be the next Laker coach. And by the way, in the last decade, Doc's winning percentage in the West overwhelmingly is 62%. Eric Spoelstra in the East, the weaker East, has been 59% and had LeBron for 4 years in his prime and D. Wade for almost all the years in his prime. Doc can coach. He's great with veteran teams. He's got a title. He gets LA media. Day one, he's got respect. He was a very good player. He's a very good coach. They just had a list of the best coaches of all time voted on by executives and coaches, and Doc made the top 15. But again, people always confused that Clipper team is a great team. No, it was fun to watch. But Chris Paul couldn't hit a three, Blake couldn't shoot, and DeAndre Jordan couldn't. They didn't have enough shooters as the league was increasingly becoming a shooters league. Golden State suddenly had them all. And so, in the end, he's never had a LeBron, and he didn't have the shooters, but the Clippers were really fun to watch. But the Clippers, even now, when they have a great front office, are still struggling to figure out how to win playoff series. Doc has their highest winning percentage of all time. But a lot of these names out there, I look at them and I just say, I got nothing against Darvin Ham or Terry Stotts and Kenny Atkinson. By all accounts, Kenny did a great job in Brooklyn before, he got run out by whoever ran him out. But do they get the respect? What happens at the Lakers? LeBron, Anthony Davis gets injured, and suddenly they're 8-13 as we, turn the corner in January, and all of a sudden you got people doubting it. This is a very hard roster to navigate. Russell Westbrook is probably going to be around with all that money. He's going to be around until the trading deadline. And Anthony Davis is a guy that doesn't like to work out terribly hard, though he's gifted. And LeBron, we know the offense is LeBron. He is the de facto point guard. And though he claims, Clutch Sport and LeBron claim he doesn't have personnel power, he got personnel power. So, it's just one of these things that we confused. I mean, look at last year with the Sixers, or this year with the Sixers, I should say. Embiid gets hurt. His face gets blown up. Harden just dissolves. And Thibault wouldn't get vaxxed, so he wasn't available in Toronto. That's not a championship team. That's just not a championship team. So you can criticize Steve Nash for they keep getting bounced, and he's got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But, you start looking at Doc's career, you win 62% of your games in the last decade, and you didn't have LeBron on any of your teams. That's hard to do. Eric Spoelstra's a great coach against the weaker East, with Pat Riley assembling his roster with LeBron and D. Wade, 59%. All right? So I don't want to hear that Doc is public. And he's been public forever because I remember I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I watched Doc Rivers play, and then he was on television. And now it's like Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's been on my television for basketball for 20 years. He just happens to be winning a lot of championships. Also remember this, Doc has a title. None of these other candidates have a title. Doc has not only a title, but he is a Meta World Peace jumper from 2. So, sometimes people that have just been out there for so long, they're either going to step in it or they're going to get over-criticized. My only knock on Doc is when he gets defensive and tries to defend himself. I wish he would stop defending himself. He did this about 2-3 weeks ago.
It's easy to use me as an example, but I wish y'all would tell the whole story with me, all right? My Orlando team was the 8th seed. No one gives me credit for getting up against the Pistons who won the title. That was an 8th seed. Go look at that. I want you to go back and look at that roster. I dare you to go back and look at that roster, and you would say, what a hell of a coaching job. Really. The Clipper team that we lost 3-1. Chris Paul didn't play in the first 2 games and was playing on one leg. And we didn't have home court. And then the last one, to me, is the one we blew. That's the one I said, we blew that. And now it was in the bubble. And anything could happen in the bubble. There's no home court. Game 7 would have been in L.A.
Now, I buy his arguments. A lot of people won't, but I think it kind of weakens him that he's up there defending it. I wish he would just rest on it. He just got voted one of the 15 best coaches ever. Every coach in this league gets fired. It's just the way it is. It's not the NFL. Well, I mean, I should say that Andy Reid got fired, Ed Belichick got fired. But I mean, this is with all the money now in pro sports, we're not talking millions anymore. The owners are billionaires. The TV deals are billions per network. You got to win really fast. This idea Doc can't coach, Doc to me is the best fit with the Lakers. Doesn't mean Philadelphia wants to let him go, but man, he's won a title. He played in the game. He has the ability to kind of navigate the stars. And this Laker team is an old roster. It's an odd roster. There's some egos here. And I think he and LeBron would work together. Both regards, both play the game, both have been around. I don't think you want to experiment with a coach. I mean, Frank Vogel feels a little like Terry Stott. In the end, there was no power. Doc would come in and have some power. Jeannie Buss knows Doc. The Buss family knows Doc. They respect Doc. They like Doc. They're not going to rush him out of town if things don't go well in the first 45 games. This is a franchise that is now in their sixth coach potentially in 11 years. Like, they're moving through coaches. You wouldn't do that to Doc. You'd give Doc the extra year or two. I think he's the best guy out there for this job. Joy with the news. Had me speak, got a town car, and I was in the car for an hour and a half driving home with an odd bird. He acknowledged during the drive he didn't really like people, different personality. But for the next hour and a half I spent in the car with this guy, he was brilliant. He was really one of the smartest people I've ever listened to in my life. But he was different and quirky and a little dysfunctional. And what he did for a living was mostly be alone or drive people around in utter silence. I just tend to be talkative and ask a lot of questions. And we tend to think, the richest people are the smartest people. And that's just not the case. There's smart people everywhere, but they don't want to play the corporate game. Maybe they just don't align with certain personalities. There are brilliant people all over this world, and they just don't care about money. I could sit and read all day and be the happiest people in the world. And in sports, we tend to think about something that's kind of analogous, that like the most talented team always wins. It's like, no, that's not the case. The talented teams have dysfunction and ego, and they're often at big blue blood programs that have pressurized environments where players shrink. The Toronto Raptors won the title in 2019. They were lucky to get into the finals because they got a crazy bounce by Kawhi Leonard. Remember that legendary picture? Or they don't even get to the finals, and then they get to the finals and the Warriors fall apart. They were not the best team. The New England Patriots lost to the Giants. They'd beaten them a month earlier in New York. And David Tyree made a catch, the only one of his career that mattered, that stuck to his helmet like there was super glue. It was a lot of luck. It's okay. You still get the title, but luck is involved, timing is involved, health is involved. And Boston is better than Miami. Miami may win the series. Boston's better than Miami. They have more elite players, more flexibility on defense, but this is a boom or bust sport now with all the three-point shots. And if you're hitting them, boom. If you're missing them, bust. And you can have quarters like Miami had. I mean, we've seen some quarters by these good teams that are just horrible. But the difference is both these teams, Miami and Boston, can be boom or bust because they shoot a lot of threes. The difference is one has really high-end, multiple elite defenders. Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. This is the best defensive construct in the NBA, Boston. This is a really good defensive team. Not just pretty good, really good. But now Marcus Smart is hurt, and Robert Williams has been hurt, and everybody's nicked up. Miami is a testament to culture and coaching and Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler's passion. But their boom isn't as high, and their bust is lower. And that's just what they are. And they may win this series because now we're tied at 2, and they get to go home. But don't kid yourself. Belichick and Greg Popovich are cautionary tales of how much brilliant culture, there's a ceiling to it. And I just think Miami's ceiling, we saw it. There's an argument to be made. It was in the bubble 2 years ago. right? When it was a younger team, not as banged up, and now P.J. Tucker's older, and Jimmy Butler's got knee inflammation, and Kyle Lowry is older. They are like the Warriors without the talent. They're really close to just falling apart physically. They can be really interesting when they're healthy and really bad when they're not. But, you know, the best team does not win every series. Boston's the better team. Everybody I trust, everybody who knows basketball that I use as a source, everybody's saying the same thing. Like, Boston's got more good players. But Boston, because this is the league, boomer bust, take a three, nothing else, they have horrible quarters. But in the 16 quarters in this series, Boston's won or tied 13 of them. But they've also arguably had 2 of the 3 worst quarters that just took them out of the game. So, you know, I look at the teams that are remaining, and I think Miami has very little margin for error. But if they don't have another horrific quarter, who knows? Boston, to me, if they're healthy, they win it. And if they just play with intensity, inexplicably, they're not talented enough to have mail-in quarters. And in a couple of quarters, Boston just hasn't shown up. They haven't played hard. They're not that talented. Golden State does know have to play hard to win. Boston has to play